Hey, what's up, Browns fans? Welcome back to another live edition. I guess this is our one live edition of the Dawgs podcast this week. I know we said 3:45. Justin got home from work early. We are loaded up and ready to go. So we're just going to kick things off here and talk about the breaking news from the day involving one of the Browns superstar guys, our favorite player on the team, and probably yours too. We're going to be talking about Nick Chubb and everything that's going on with that. And while we let the chat fill up and everybody kind of get in here, since we are starting early, just remind you guys, please, if you're on YouTube, like this video, subscribe to the channel, tap the notification bell so you don't miss any of these new episodes, so you don't miss an alert when we go live a little early like this. Usually we're late. There's one contributing factor to that usually that's not here today, so there's your variable. Yes, Blake, that was a dig. I'm just messing with you. Anyway, and if you're listening on audio to this podcast afterwards, we appreciate it. And Apple Podcasts specifically, make sure you guys leave us a 5-star review. Just scroll down to the bottom of the page, tap 5-star, and just leave us a written review, quick sentence or two, something simple, easy, just whatever you guys want to say, and that really helps out the show. And with all that being said, Justin, why don't we talk about our boy Nick Chubb?
I'd love to. What glorious news on this Thursday afternoon. I got the notification on my phone, something I kind of been waiting for, the last few weeks. I've just been waiting for some kind of news. It's been quiet. There hasn't been a whole lot, but you got the impression that things were going on behind the scenes, that there was talks, there was some restructuring going on. But I mean, I feel like we can all kind of take a deep breath, like Browns Nation. You can all kind of just take a deep breath. Our guy is for sure coming back. They worked out, a restructuring. I'll let you get into the little money on that. I have some rough numbers in my head, what I saw, but I think it's great news. The idea of not having Nick Chubb on this team, like he's just been such a cornerstone piece of everything that's happened the last, let's say, 4 or 5 years. Like he's just such a big part of just the turnaround, just no nonsense guy, one of the best in the league, like as far as running backs. Like,
oh yeah,
we've argued it for a long time. Like just watching him is amazing. But it's just great news. The idea of not seeing him in a Browns uniform was terrifying for me, but I think in a way a possibility, if they couldn't figure it out. And then, I think even for me, like medically, like I think this says a lot. Like, yeah, obviously he still has a ways to go, but I think if there is any doubt that like maybe like his career was over, like you wouldn't be hearing this news. Like this is positive news heading into this year.
Yeah, it definitely is. And before we dive into the contract stuff and just maybe some misconceptions, I think we'll get into it, but the big thing is I'm just looking at the stats, and I don't know how many people realize this, but just those 5 quarters that Nick Chubb was able to play in 2023 before the knee injury, that he did just enough there with his yardage and his average, which was 6.1 on 28 carries for 170 yards, and that put him at 5.3 yards per carry career average, which moves him firmly into number 2 all time in the NFL, just behind Jamal Charles and ahead of Jim Brown. He was tied with Jim Brown there for a while. And that 5.3 right now has him at number 2 overall. And the dude's been a 1,000-yard receiver. I mean, technically his entire...
If you don't count last year.
Well, no, I was going to say
prior 4.
Technically the last 4 years, but realistically his entire career, because in his rookie season he had 996 yards. I mean, if Hugh Jackson wasn't being a douchebag at the beginning of the season, Nick Chubb would have easily been over 1,000 yards. He was 5.2 a carry that year, and it's just been. And then he was at almost 1,500. Then he just hit 1,000 because he was injured that following year in 2020, and then 1,200, 1,500 in 2022. Looking for a big year in 23, and Minkah Fitzpatrick ruined that. But he's back. He's staying here at least for 2024. So this is the final year of his deal. I did not see any indication or any reports that this... All right, let's just dive into the contract before I get too ahead of myself, because I think there's a lot of terminology, and correct me if I'm wrong if you've heard other things. I feel like the reporting has been a little bit all over the place, and it is with a lot of these contracts.
So just from what I read, I saw that they were able to restructure, and it's a little over $11 million a year, and then with incentives, it basically puts them at like maybe 12.25 or something like that. That's just the numbers that I saw. And they were like the goals that, and these were just articles I was reading, the goals, the performance goals, I'm guessing were very achievable based on what it sounded like. I didn't see actual numbers. Obviously, you're gonna have to take into like there's gonna be games missed. I don't think that Nick Chubb's coming out week one. And I wouldn't be surprised if, maybe the first, let's say, up to 4 weeks, we didn't see Nick Chubb. I think you see that when they bolstered the running back room, when you bring in a Foreman who's, a capable back that can carry the road. You still have Jerome Ford. So it's just one of those things. I just want him to get fully healthy. I don't want him rushing back or anything like that. And then you see setbacks and I just don't want him to look like a shell of himself.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. And you said a word there that I feel like has been misleading today. And it's the same word I used whenever I went and posted about it on social media because it's what I was reading in the reports. And you said restructured. But I don't see, so a restructure, the player's still getting the same money. They're right. Getting the money they're owed just in a different way. And right. So based on my understanding of the contracts and restructuring and all that stuff, this was not a contract restructure. It was a reworking or essentially a re-signing. Yeah. Excuse me, it's basically a new contract because there was no, in the restructure reports, you see where money was converted into bonus money up front, paid out now, and it takes away from the salary over the year, which lowers the cap hit. That's not what happened with Nick Chubb. And we talked about that. Well, I feel like I've been talking about that for weeks now, how I don't know how the Browns restructure Nick Chubb's contract because there's nothing to restructure. All the money that he's been owed has been paid, and there's no play. There's nothing to play with. So going into this whole offseason, we've been talking about it. Nick Chubb was a $15.8 million cap hit, and then he had a $4 million dead cap, and $11.8 million could be saved if the Browns were to cut him. So again, we talked about how the Browns and Nick Chubb, they're going to have to work something out because they can't afford to pay almost $16 million to a 28-year-old running back who's coming off his second major knee injury. And like you said, he's going to miss part of the season. And then when he does come back, he's probably going to be limited, most likely, when he returns.
I think that's fair to say that.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't, if it's his first game back and he has 24 touches, I'm not going to lie. There's going to be some very nervous, worried Browns fans, and at least you should be. If you're being realistic about it, I think he gets eased way back in very, very slowly, almost like how Javonte Williams was eased back in, like for Denver, coming off his ACL tear. What was it? Not last year, but the year before, I believe, or was last year.
It was last year, but it would be, I would think, even more reduced from that because he's a 22, 23-year-old running back on his first injury. So I just think Again, we love Nick Chubb. And if anybody can come back from this and still somehow be an elite running back, it's Nick Chubb.
He's that guy.
To force those expectations on this guy, you're setting yourself up for disappointment because they're just not realistic. So we're just trying to be a little more realistic about it. So like you were saying, the original report that I saw said that Nick Chubb's base salary had been reduced from $15.8 million to $11.8 million with those incentives to make up some of the rest. And then somebody on Facebook shared an Adam Schefter tweet, which he said that the new deal was a base salary of $6 million or something, around $6 million with incentives on that. And as soon as I saw the $6 million, I was like, that makes so much more sense because when I saw the original report that it had been reduced to 11.8, I thought, okay, that's cool. It's lower, but it's still kind of high, a lot higher than I was expecting for this situation. And then I saw that tweet about the $6 million, and I was like, okay, that number makes a whole lot more sense to me.
Absolutely. That's the number that I saw for the cap hit now after the deal was done was 6.
Okay.
That was the number that I saw. So, and that makes a lot more sense too. Like if the incentives is only, another $250,000, how many incentives are there? What performance-based incentives are worth that? You know what I mean?
Right.
So that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, not a restructure, a reworking, a new contract, and essentially what this boils down to, as far as I understand it, and if I'm totally wrong, let us know how you might understand it or any new information that comes out, which we will get new information over the coming days. But I think this was essentially just the pay cut that we were talking about Nick Chubb was going to have to take. And all right, let me know if you agree with me on this, Justin, because I've been seeing a lot of people on social media and stuff jumping straight to the whole Nick Chubb is such a great team player. He took less money to help the team, yada, yada, yada. Like, don't hear what I'm not saying. We all love Nick Chubb, and he is a come to work, bust your ass, just do your job kind of guy. But
are you saying the situation like right now, like this deal?
Yeah.
That's what you're hearing?
Yes.
No, so don't get me wrong. I'm sure that we can spin it like that. That's fine. But at the end of the day,
that's not the truth.
There's medical concern. You know what I mean? He's coming off an injury. He's not going to be ready week 1. And I'm not a doctor. Like, guys, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a sports trainer. You know what I mean? But like, I watched that injury last year, and at the time I went, oh my God, I just watched my favorite football player of all time, just career end, just right in front of my eyes. Like, soul sucked out of me. Like, immediate. I felt like I went through immediate depression and PTSD, like on spot, which I've never, as a Browns fan, it was weird because I've been in moments from like, wow, that was unbelievable. I can't believe like that's how this game ended, or I can't believe we just did that. But I'm like, to watch like somebody that you like as a team, as a fan base, we hold so highly. And even as like the team holds highly, like it was just super demoralizing. But I agree with you. I don't think he was in a position to like go and kind of like play hardball. And I don't think like either side really wanted to. I think Nick Chubb wants to be here. I think Cleveland wants him here. You see other situations now, like I'm going to compare him to another guy. They're not in the same league, but look at Dobbins. You know what I mean? He's coming off a major injury. He's still available.
Yeah.
And he's
younger.
He's younger. I mean, he's got big upside. And he's still trying to find a home. I mean, I think just the running back market, just kind of for whatever reason, just it's so undervalued. This year was kind of crazy with free agencies because you saw guys get paid. Saquon got paid, DeAndre Swift got paid. You saw guys finally get
Josh
kind
Jacobs.
of the bag. You saw guys get the bag, but I think in that situation, coming off such a horrendous injury, so much uncertainty, for me as a fan, it was hard for me to believe that Cleveland would ever even allow him the opportunity to get out of the door or even just be cut straight up. It was hard to believe, but at the same time, there's a business aspect to this.
Yep.
And if they thought that he wasn't going to be there, or he wasn't going to be the same guy, I think that you have to still use your head. You have to use your brain. We love Nick Chubb. Everybody loves Nick Chubb, but at the end of the day, I think a decision had to be made. I think that this is a great deal on both sides, though.
Oh, for sure. And, when you talk about guys getting paid this offseason, like as a running back in the NFL, you're trying to get that one big contract. You come off your rookie deal and you're hoping you get that one contract because that's it. You're going to get that one contract. And then by the time that's over, you're an old running back and if you're getting another contract, it's going to be a cheap deal. And Nick Chubb got his big deal. That's the thing that I think a lot of people overlook is he was the third highest paid running back in the entire league. So the Browns do value him. But, whenever they gave him the second contract, they valued what he brought to the team and to the offense and everything else. So he has definitely, been a highly valued asset for the Browns. And with this situation, like you said, sure, if fans want to spin it like, oh, he's such a great team player, he took this pay cut to help everybody out. I mean, you can lie to yourself. That's fine. That's not what he did. This was the best deal on the table, bar none. I guarantee it, because the way this situation was, and we laid it out all offseason, Nick Chubb he's either going to take a pay cut or he's going to get cut. We've said that multiple times. If he refused to work a new deal, he would be walking away with that $4 million, that dead cap, and then he would be out in free agency like J.K. Dobbins, hoping another team will sign him. And then with his recovery and uncertain timeline for this season, maybe he gets a cheap deal with nothing guaranteed. The money's not guaranteed. The roster spot's not guaranteed, depending on how he recovers. He stays here with Cleveland on this reworked pay cut deal. Now he gets $6 million instead of $4. Excuse me again. He gets the incentives on top of that. So there's more money to be made. And then he knows that he probably still has a future here as long as he comes back from the injury and shows he can still play at a high level. And, even if he doesn't, or if he does come back and play at a high level, even if next year's contract isn't with the Browns, which it probably would be, he's at least shown that he can still get a contract somewhere else. So this is, in my opinion, like you said, great deal for both sides. The Browns get cap relief. They weren't going to pay him $16 million against the cap to recover this year anyway. And he gets more money than he was going to get if he got cut or if he got cut and signed by somebody else, in my opinion.
I think you touched on something like pretty important there at the end too. Like he's heading into his final year with uncertainties and stuff like that. Like he'd be kind of having to go into a prove it. And Nick Chubb has nothing to prove. You know what I mean? Like in my eyes, I don't think Nick Chubb has anything to prove to Cleveland, the Browns. Like as far as like what he's done already, like moving forward with,
he's got to prove he can still do it though.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
So this works for both sides. If you're the Browns and Nick Chubb comes back and he's Nick Chubb of old, you're getting an elite running back basically on a cheap deal that could pay out for basically what top end running backs are making right around that 12 million mark. And if you're Nick Chubb and you come back and you ball out, you're putting the Browns in a situation where, hey, now do you guys want to pay me? If not, somebody else is probably going to pay him. There's always a team that's ready to line up and throw some kind of money at a running back, especially of like a guy that caliber. You see, I mean, just this offseason, it was done. There was big deals. I mean, guys kind of went all over the place. I mean, these guys were younger. We're talking Josh Jacobs. We're talking, Saquon, Swift. But I think at the end of the day, we would all say that Nick Chubb is a higher caliber running back than all those guys, just older. So if he can still prove he's got it, he's still got the wheels, he's still got everything, because the skill set as far as like his vision and all that stuff, that's not going anywhere. It's just, can the body hold up now? Can the legs and the knees hold up now? So
right.
I think it's great. I think it's literally a great deal for both sides.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is something, and we've talked about it a ton. We fully expected this to happen at some point, but it was just that that anxious waiting, like, okay, it'd be nice if it would just happen so we know that he's for sure going to be here this season. And now we got it. We're good to go. We're locked and loaded for another year of Nick Chubb in Cleveland. And again, like we've been saying, like Justin just hit on, if he comes out, balls out, shows that, yes, I don't expect Nick Chubb to be old Nick Chubb probably at any point this season. I maybe will see flashes and glimpses and a play here and there where we're like, oh, he can still do it. But I don't expect to see the consistency because this is a tough injury to come back from. You see younger guys come back from torn ACLs and things.
Breece Hall, bro.
And
I was just going to bring him up.
It takes 8, 9, 10 weeks to really get back to form. And a lot of guys, it takes a whole season, they say. So again, older running back, I think he's definitely going to be eased into it. And you hit on it at the top of the show. The Browns have already prepared for this. So the writing was on the wall. We know what's going to happen this season as far as what the expectations are for Nick Chubb and his recovery timeline, because they signed Deontay Foreman to go along with Jerome Ford. They signed Nyheim Hines, good passing down back, great returner. And I think that is being a little overlooked, but that could be his spot on this team. And honestly, I think Pierre Strong's probably not going to make the team at this point in time, is kind of my opinion, because the guys the Browns are meeting with for the draft, some of these prospects, I mean, these guys would be a lock to make the roster and contribute right away. Like, they met with Trey Benson from Florida State. He's projected in the second round, maybe early third, depending on how things go. Some scouts have him as the top running back in the class. He's usually top 2 or 3.
A lot of people that so I do a lot of not only just fantasy stuff like that, but we like doing mocks and stuff like that. And a lot of the mock drafts, he's the first running back off the board. ESPN did one about 2 weeks ago, and he was the first running back off the board, and it was to Cleveland. So, just something interesting to think about.
Yeah, and again, it's not just a speculation like, oh, he might fit with the... They've actually used a top 30 pick on him. They only get 30 of them. They used one on him. They met with Notre Dame running back Audric Estime at the scouting combine, and they've also met with BYU running back Aiden Robbins. I think there's been a couple other guys, but those are the notable names. And those last two are big body bruiser type backs.
Well, that's performance like that. Foreman's a big guy. You know what I mean? And like I don't know how much like Browns fans know about him, but like from what you see of him and his opportunities, he came in for an injured Christian McCaffrey 2 or 3 years ago and kind of excelled. And glimpses last year with Chicago, looked completely serviceable. I think it's like you said, running back by committee, get Nick Chubb back in there, bring him back slow. Probably going to be a committee all year. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be shocked by that at all. I think you just count your blessings that Nick Chubb is on your roster and still able to give you touches, opportunities, and just let it go from there.
Absolutely. And one last thing to mention about Foreman, too. This is a guy who tore his Achilles his rookie year, I think, with the Texans. And it took him 3 or 4 years to it looked like he was going to be out of the league. He was kind of bouncing around off practice squads like, dude, he's got that injury and I don't think he's coming back. And then he did, and now he is back, but it took a while. So again, just these athletes are awesome. They're superhuman. They can do amazing things on a football field. They're the best of the best in the whole world at what they do, but they are still human beings with human bodies. So they got to recover. And we're just praying to God that Nick Chubb is recovering fine and that he'll be back on the field at some point here in 24 and helping us win football games, because that's what it's all about.
Can't wait.
I know.
Can't wait to see that. Anything
else you want to touch on with Nick Chubb before we wrap it up?
Nope. Just excited. Very happy. Best news I could have heard. Been waiting for weeks now.
Yeah, I know. Me too, man. So, all right, everybody, if you have not checked out our interview with Matt McCrane, the former Browns kicker, he's now the kicker for the DC Defenders in the UFL. Go check that out. It's over on YouTube right now. And that was a ton of fun. Matt was an awesome guy. We're definitely going to try to have him back on, hopefully over the summer, maybe around training camp time, to get some insight on what these guys are thinking, because he's been to plenty of training camps in the NFL and, been around this league for a while. So that was really, really cool. We got some good insight from him.
Absolutely. Super cool.
Yeah, very cool. All right, everybody. Well, we're going to wrap this thing up. Again, like and subscribe on YouTube. Help us get to that 10,000 subscriber mark. And until we talk to